Jeff and Linda, I'm not seeing you guys in the picture here yet. It was a minute ago, but you seem to be gone now. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, go
ahead. Okay, I have you now. Okay.
Good.
Okay, Jeff?
There? Hey,
yeah,
hey.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry about the technical problems.
That's okay. Okay.
It tends to happen. You know, you get this much energy and sometimes the technology just gets a little strange. Can you see us okay?
I can see you. You look great.
Good.
You look fantastic. We had a test, just to let everybody know, we had a test about an hour ago. It was perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. And now here we are. And yeah, that's the way of the universe. So you're both very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Positive Life here in Ireland. We are a magazine. We do these events. Due to the recent carry on, we do them now on Zoom. So until we can all gather again. We're delighted to have you guys here. I came across your work actually at the beginning of the whole crisis. I got sent one of your videos, and on the video it said that you were channeling Adamus, Jeff, and you said that this was an economic virus. It would be great. I feel the whole, definitely in Ireland and in Europe, it's petering out here. You know, the numbers are going way, way down. In America, there seems to be another surge of whatever's going on right now in a different guise with Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. What's your comment around when you said it was an economic virus? What's your feeling on it now? Do you maintain that? Do you feel that that's definitely the main agenda?
Absolutely. And just for clarification, was Adamus that said that?
Yes,
I channel it. Adamus Saint-Germain. So he said that. And this was very, very early on. I mean, before it ever became even thought of as a pandemic. And he said, watch what's going to happen, because this, a virus, whether it's biological or even a consciousness virus, is really designed to rebalance things. And this particular virus ultimately is going to be about rebalancing economies and the injustices, the imbalances in the economy. So it was no surprise to me that it hit, particularly in places like New York, which is a major financial center for the world. And ultimately, the kind of the side effects are things like the whole injustice with whether it's black or brown or yellow or white or anything, all the imbalances that are on the planet. We've had a financial system that's been around for about 500 years, and it's time for an overhaul. And I'm not talking about something overly drastic, but a rebalancing. And we're going to be getting away from banks to a large part, not totally, but we're going to be moving away from some of the imbalances in pay scales, not just within a company or a country, but around the world. So we're undergoing all this right now. For Linda and I, it's fascinating to watch and see how all this is unfolding, and it's not going to end right away. No. I think the virus is going to be around for a while, and just the whole change of lifestyle that we've all had. And I do want to note that Adamus, the wonderful entity that I channel, actually predicted this back in 2014.
He did.
He talked about a virus that was going to be, they were going to say they knew how to handle it, but they didn't. It would spread globally. It would change the world. And at the same time, there would be a lot of protests and violence and things like that in the world. So he kind of gave us a heads up way back when, and he said, have at least a 30-day supply of food and water. Toilet paper, right? Because, well, that's important.
That's at top of my list.
And this isn't apocalyptic, the world coming to an end. It's the world changing. And when we have things like this happen, the distribution systems sometimes are shut down. Mm-hmm. So it was really good advice. And actually a lot of Shaumbra, the Crimson Circle people, took heed. And we never had to dig into our supplies, but it was nice to know that they were there.
You guys probably had all the toilet rolls.
Oh, we did. we were at our retreat center in Kona, Hawaii, and actually we stock up because we're doing events. You know, you got 40, 50 people at a time. That's a lot of toilet paper you go through. So we literally had about 200 rolls in stock. We did not worry about a thing.
It was such a perfect coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
I want to track back now, and just there's probably a lot of people on here who know who you are, Jeff, and what your background is, but there are some who don't. So just to you guys both worked. You had a very corporate background. I think you ran your own company, and you've been doing that for quite a while. Very busy, probably living the typical Western life, running around a bit too much. And I'm just wondering, the first channel that came into your life was Tobias. Is that correct? Can you tell us how that happened?
Well, I'm going to give the very short version because I can go on and on. But again, Linda and I were living in Texas at the time. We had a marketing consulting company, and we were also involved in an aviation technology company, for which, by the way, I got several patents on that technology. It's basically when you use the internet on an airplane now. That was myself and a couple of partners. But I actually have several patents that for multi-dimensional communications.
Literally.
Wow.
It was the result of the aviation technology, but I find it amusing.
It was funny. That was what they called it.
I like to say that I'm the only channeler in the world with patents on interdimensional telecommunications. But anyway, so just doing the busy life, kind of almost yuppie life. And one day I was on an airplane flight one night coming home, and I heard this voice and said, "I'm Tobias. I'm here to work with you." And I truly thought I was going a little crazy, but we started chatting, and I mean, he was chatting. I was just kind of, I guess, half in a trance, and it was fascinating what he was talking about. But the next morning when I woke up, I thought, "Oh, Geoffrey, you got to get yourself together here. You're, talking to, spooks out there, and just, get focused." And I was actually a little irritated, because I had this wonderful thing happen, but it's like, okay, only because I'm working too hard. But he came back about a week later, and then that turned into working with him every night while I was driving home. He would take me through what I call spiritual boot camp, teaching me amazing things. And yes, I did have a lot of doubt the whole time. I mean, it wasn't just like, the next day I'm like, okay, I'm talking to this spook, Tobias. And there were times when I'm mad at him and sent him away. And times I wonder if I should just, run from the whole thing. But eventually, after a year of not telling anybody, I told Linda. She said, "I'd like to talk to this guy." And I said, "I don't know how to do that." But we sat down, and that was the first channel. And Linda liked him.
Yeah, I did.
Sure. Yeah, I heard you he was described as an old Jew, I think. Is that what you said?
He was, there's actually, I learned later, because I knew nothing about the Bible, but I learned later that there were in the apocryphal books of the Bible, the ones that were kind of thrown out. Yeah. There's this beautiful story. It's called the Book of Tobit, or the Book of Tobias. Beautiful story. And I learned that that's Tobias, or my Tobias.
Sure. And Linda, just at that period in your lives, you seemed to go along with it quite easily. You weren't too thrown by it. You were okay with it.
We'd been married for quite a while at that point, and I knew that, Jeff was, I loved him a lot. And, I loved you a lot. I still do. Anyways, it was surprising. It was nothing I could have imagined. But when he approached me on it, his honesty and his vulnerability were so there that there was no way I couldn't be open to it. And then, but the part that made it really work is that I'm not a very religious person. That never really worked very well for me. And even New Agey stuff was just like, oh my God, just another form of religion. But when Jeff started channeling, the material struck a chord with me. It was very, related to our sovereignty and real personal, positive, supporting things that just, and so I couldn't not like it. I just couldn't not like it. The material itself was so good. And then of course, Jeff's voice, the energy in his voice, it's not just the words, it's all of it, even the eyes. I mean, it's no coincidence that he has these crystal blue eyes that you can read the energies and feel the energies. So yes, I got pretty hooked on it.
I have to say, Jeff, I was struck myself. I've met a lot of spiritual teachers and channels, and the presence that you evoke when you go into being with Saint Germain or Adamus, it's quite powerful. You know, you really, I mean, you feel it off a YouTube video. So I'm just wondering how.
Oh wow!
Yeah, how did the switch from Tobias to Adamus take place?
It was kind of interesting. Last thing we expected, because we'd been working with Tobias
I loved him.
for almost 10 years. And then one day it was announced that he was going to be leaving, actually, so he could have another incarnation on the planet. Even though he's ascended master, he wanted to come back to the planet in another incarnation just to enjoy life, which he'd never really done. And it was said that this Saint Germain would be taking over. And it was kind of a strange time. I actually kind of thought it was going to be the end of the channeling thing, which was fine. You know, I mean, Linda and I weren't like invested in it. And if it all ended, that would have been okay. And then Saint Germain came in and used the name Adamas, or as you would say in Europe, Adamus Saint-Germain. And totally different than Tobias. First of all, he had me open my eyes when I was channeling and walk around. He interacted with people. And for the 10 years with Tobias, I was always seated with my eyes closed, and I didn't have to face the audience. And now here's Adamus, and he can be very provocative, and
that's for sure.
Yeah, and annoying, but also magical and insightful. So he told us that Adamus is a kind of facet of Saint Germain, a facet that he crafted with all of us who are in the Crimson Circle to bring forth a very, very specific message, and he didn't want to getting it confused with some of the previous Saint Germain channelers. So we've come to know him as Adamus, but it's really a cool facet of Saint Germain.
And I'm just wondering, Linda, from your perspective, what do you see? Is there a difference between the teachings of Tobias and Adamus?
I actually have a really funny distillation. Tobias was about learning to love yourself, and Adamus is about trusting yourself. He literally distilled it down that simply, and it's true. And so at the point that you can live your life trusting yourself, it changes everything.
Okay, nice one.
And then Adamus also, just to add to that, the huge difference with Adamus too is he was deliberately provocative, because, you know, so many times when we would do Tobias stuff or you'd see other kinds of work, people would like drift off and fall asleep. And Adamus is like, I'm going to keep this exciting. So you're here and you're listening and present. Seriously, that's what he did.
Yeah. And
so I had a hard time with him at first, because I had been a school teacher at one time, and he crossed every line that I had as what a teacher would do. So, but I took a little time, but I learned to appreciate and see the beauty of it, but it didn't happen overnight.
No.
Okay. So he's a bit more forthright, not as gentle as Tobias in that sense. He's a bit more...
one is like the uncle and the other one is like the provocative.
Tobias was such a gentle grandfatherly figure.
Yeah.
And then Adamus comes in, and he can be a real protagonist or a real provocateur. And it took me about 6 months. That first 6 months working with him, I wasn't sure how this was all going to go. And he would confront people, things I would never do. I mean, he would call them out during a live webcast on their crap. And I'm like, oh no. And
he'd say, just go if you don't like it.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh God, what's going to happen?
But, you know, the big difference ultimately between the two was Tobias was here to help us release the old wounds. And, you know, so many were really, really wounded from lifetimes. And deep emotional wounds. And he was here to say, you're not crazy. You know, all these strange things are not really strange. You're not crazy. It's just time to release those old wounds. And then Adamus has a very, very clear focus right now. I mean, incredibly clear.
Truly.
He's here to work with those people who are choosing embodied realization. Basically, those people that are saying, I'm ready for he doesn't like the word enlightenment, so he calls it realization. I'm ready for my enlightenment. but I'm going to stay in my physical body and stay on the planet. And while that may sound obvious, actually it's one of the hardest things to do, because you hit your realization, and you don't really see a big reason to stay. I mean, you're free of so many of the body issues, but you're just like, why would I want to stay in a very, very harsh environment? So Adamus is here working with those who are truly choosing realization. He doesn't suffer hobbyists or people that are just energy feeders. Like Linda said, he often invites people to leave. And he said, if you're not here for realization, this is no place for you. That's what we do here, and that's it. And it's actually refreshing, because we know when we sit down to do something with him, we know that that is his focus. It's not just going to be a sugary talk. It's not going to be just cozy words. He is here to kick our butts into realization.
And kick our butts just means he's very clear and direct.
Yeah,
he's, he doesn't sugarcoat things, so to speak.
And he can be funny once in a while.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
We like a bit of comedy here in Ireland. That's a big part of what we do over here. We like to laugh. And
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, Jeff, duality. So we live in a plane of duality here, pretty much. We have hot and cold, we have dark and light. And at the moment, there seems to be a play of dark and light. But from Adamus's perspective, there's no need to view it in that dual way. I mean, if you're trying to, and I shouldn't say trying to, if you're stepping into mastery, those labels become irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
So
Totally.
What would you
say? You're on it.
What?
You're so on it.
Yeah.
How do you teach that to people?
Actually, first of all, we're not spiritual teachers. Linda and I never want to be. We help facilitate putting together gatherings, and even Adamus really isn't a teacher. He's kind of the guide along the way. But ultimately, in answer to your questions, people find it within. Once they're no longer afraid to look at both the masculine and feminine parts of themselves. And people get very segmented into the feminine or into the masculine. And once they're no longer afraid of looking at both the light and the dark within, that's the thing that helps them, because they realize the dark isn't really dark. There is no true darkness within any soul being. It's only things that we've learned to hate or feel shameful or guilty about ourselves we put into what we call darkness. And ultimately, there really isn't. And what I love about the work that we're doing is literally you transcend those things. There's no masculine, feminine, there's no rich, there's no poor, unless you want to play that game, unless you want to get into that duality. And but Adamus says, if you're heading into realization, stop being a cause worker. Stop fighting for causes. There's enough other people on the planet that will do that for you, but you transcend the dark and the light, the masculine, the feminine, the rich and the poor, and those concepts simply go out of your vernacular. They're irrelevant to you. You know they exist with others, but they're irrelevant.
Linda, when somebody goes on that tip that Jeff is saying there, and I've met a lot of people like that. There's a channel that's very popular here in Ireland, Abraham Hicks. I'm sure you're familiar with those guys.
Yep.
And so the person would say, well, I'm not going to go to any protests. I'm fine. Everything's cool. And the other guy might say, don't you care? Don't you care about like what's happening? Don't you care about people's rights? But does the master care even more by not going? What's your take on that?
You get involved in something like that, you're just contributing to the polarity into the duality into it, where actually Adamus specifically said Crimson Circle isn't even about spiritual. He said what we're doing is all about consciousness. Now when you see a protest like that and it brings consciousness and awareness to things, that might change it, but Crimson Circle is about consciousness. I mean, isn't that what would really change the world, is everyone coming to more consciousness and awareness?
Adamus also, if you don't mind me adding to that, Adamus says that the master, their office is a park bench or a cafe. And, once you come to that point of realization, you are literally radiating, I don't want to call it a light, but a consciousness. You don't need to do anything. You just need to be there. And now what you do is you illuminate potentials for humanity or other people or your family or whatever. It's up to them to choose what potentials they want to experience. But what you're doing is like turning on a light in a dark room and saying, there are other ways to do this. But if you're out there fighting for a cause, you're going to get terribly distracted, and it's not serving the highest good of what you can be by just radiating or allowing your consciousness.
So is it really, can we say to people, it's really about your own self-development. It's really about your own inner work. And, I've heard before that a lot of people come here and they try to transcend the human and the divine. Is it,
right.
should we really be marrying the divine with the human? Is that what we should be after?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for answering our question. Adamus talks about the kind of a trinity, and he says that there's the human aspect of every one of us. The human is here for one thing, and that's experience. To have a sensual life, to experience highs and lows and ups and downs or whatever, but that's the responsibility of the human. The master part of ourself is here to bring all that experience, along with its emotions and everything, into wisdom. And then the I am, which the divine, is here to, the I am just loves the drinking in that wisdom, and in doing so, continues to fall in love with itself. And the people have thought for a long time that it's up to the human to become enlightened, and it's actually not. It'll happen naturally through all the process of the I am and the master, but the human is here just to experience that's it. And it takes a huge responsibility off of our shoulders when we know, oh, that's right, I don't have to do enlightenment. I couldn't even if I wanted. I just allow it into my natural state.
And does he encourage people to meditate, to get into nature? He doesn't do any of that. He just says, like,
be.
Yeah.
Relax into it.
Yeah, even like he came up with something called a 60-second workout, and it was like basically 60-second audio track, a little music. You sit down, you listen to it for 60 seconds, and that's it. Your workout is done. He says we come up with all these rules and these strange things, and and then they're almost like hurdles that we're putting in front of us to see if we can jump over them. And it's like that. You don't have to do that. You don't need to meditate, because ultimately every breath, every moment is a meditation. But if you're doing meditation, if you're, like, it's 4:00, I got to do my meditation, you just lost it. It's gone mental.
Okay.
He's really not opposed to anything. He himself in his last lifetime was vegetarian, but he didn't care if we eat meat or drink wine or any of that. The only thing he doesn't like are these antidepressant medications, what are called the SSRIs. Yeah. And that's the thing he says, if
fanatical,
anything's okay, stay away from those.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So if he was here, he'd have a pint of Guinness with us in Ireland. He wouldn't mind.
Yeah. No, he'd love that.
The other cool thing I like is that Adamus isn't trying to attract an audience. I mean, like I said, he tells people all the time, it doesn't work for you, go. Yeah. I mean, and I love that about him, because he's just clear about what the message is. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. That's totally fine. So it's very interesting to see what he does. As a partner.
I find him fascinating now. I love him because I understand his kind of how he does things, and I as a channeler, I'm watching how he's setting things up, how he's distracting intentionally so that everybody's attention, so they can allow their own divinity. And it's truly, I could write a book about his amazing techniques in doing things. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I just felt there when you were speaking that it's like he has a much broader perspective for each being, and he's always working.
Yes.
Their best,
Absolutely.
I can feel that. Just a general question in terms of humanity. Humanity's going through quite a shift at the moment. What is next for humanity, do you feel? People are talking about Christ consciousness. You guys talk about sovereignty, which I think is a beautiful word. It's so empowering. What's next for us humans, do you feel? What are you being told? What are you seeing?
I'll jump in and then. He doesn't very often talk about the global situation because he's here to work with those who are choosing to become the embodied masters. But once a year in what we call Pronost, he talks about the world situation. It's fascinating. It's amazing stuff. But what's next for the planet is what he calls the new human species, which he calls the Robo-Sapien, where we have the combination of technology and biology. There'll be a lot of people who go the route of implants, whether it's for a limb or an organ or something like that, but also the implants for the mind, literally walking around with it. And this isn't science fiction stuff. I mean, it's happening right now. I mean, China is chipping their entire population. So he says that's the next thing that's going to be happening over the next 20, 30 years. And he cannot even see out past that. He says to see out past basically about 2050, it's just impossible because we go off the charts. And some people would call it singularity, but it's really, it is no longer like a linear curve, like the hockey stick curve in the evolution. It just goes off the charts.
We just do a quantum leap in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does he ever talk about extraterrestrial intelligence at all? And that, Star Brothers and Sisters and their role in this whole shift for us. Does he talk about that?
Extraterrestrials?
Yeah, ETs.
Oh, he threw them out. He told them they had to go.
Yes, from the very start. He does not like them. He does not like Palladians, and I know there's a lot of people out there that do. But he basically says the Palladians are a bunch of liars. They say that they're here to help the planet. They're not. He says, I'll sum it up because people get really irritated with him.
Really irritated.
He said there is no being in all of creation greater than the human being. Stop looking outside for the answers. It's just not there. The aliens don't have the answers. If they did, we wouldn't be going through a lot of stuff. And we humans have this propensity to want to get answers out there. And his whole thing is like turning that in, but it's a big, hard turn because people still want to have spirit guides and angel counselors and alien
distractions.
They're all distractions because everything is right here within each and every one of us. And there's nobody that's exempt from that. Everybody's got it, and all is just a matter of allowing that.
It's a pretty big switch for some people.
Yeah.
That's a huge switch sometimes to say it's all within me. It's up to me. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
Recently.
To a lot of people, it sounds more exciting to think a lot of alien ships are going to come down and give us, a lot of information. Sure. Yeah, but it's a beautiful answer. It points you right back home.
Yeah.
I just want to talk a bit about embodied enlightenment and what you touched on earlier. So I feel like a lot of us came here for this experience to actually have the feeling of enlightenment in the human body. And I suppose, how do you see a human master behave? Do you think there's many masters on the planet right now? Human masters?
There was a whole group of ascended masters that reincarnated at about the time Tobias did, about 1,500 of them, out of the approximately 10,000 ascended masters.
That was around 2010, 29?
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago or so. Yeah. But they're living kind of quiet lives. They reincarnated literally like Tobias to enjoy life, which many did not do, because usually the path to realization or enlightenment is fraught with suffering. So many of the ascended masters of the past had a lot of suffering, and then their realization, including Tobias. He died in a prison cell. And so they come back to finally say, I'm just going to enjoy this beautiful planet, all that it has to offer. They're not here to interfere with governments or organizations or anything like that. They're here kind of very nicely, selfishly. But you ask about the more contemporary embodied master, because most of the masters are kind of from way in the past. The new kind of breed of embodied master is going to have a relatively quiet life. Everything comes to them because they understand that all energy is really just theirs, and it's there to serve them. Humanity still has this concept of, they don't know what the hell energy is, but they think it's all out there, and they think they have to work for it or fight for it. The master understands that everything they perceive is their energy, and all the energy is theirs. And I know a lot of the viewers might, that's a little hard to comprehend at first, but imagine that all the energy is yours. It's just how you're perceiving the world. That energy is here to serve you. It's not here to oppose you, and you don't have to earn it. And suddenly everything changes, and suddenly the energy, you're finally allowing it to serve you. You don't have to work that hard. You don't have to struggle with abundance or health or any of that. It's just, now it's your energy and it's flowing to you. And that's so huge for the embodied master. And then they realize, in the state of compassion, they don't have to change the world. They don't have to save the dolphins or the forests or anything like that. They don't have to do that. Humanity can still work through all that, but their role now is to be really kind of a bearers of consciousness and illuminating potentials to everybody else without saying, do this, do that. So they lead kind of a quiet, but very, very sensual life.
Beautiful.
I, by the way, I'm not channeling Adamas, but he's like right here. Come on, push that through.
He wants to get that bit in.
Yeah.
Linda, I do really want people to get a sense of how to work with energy like this and how effortless it actually is. When we talk about things like abundance, and as I said to Jeff earlier, there's a lot of spiritual people who just don't have any money. You know, they're kind of running around, living their lives the best they can, but the money's not rolling in. So in your own lives, when you kind of let go, how can you describe that to people so they can get a sense of it? How did you go into a receiving mode rather than a kind of a get out there and get stuff mode? You know, what was the shift for you?
That's kind of a hard question, because I have never perceived of abundance as a problem for me in my life, because my personal observation is that generally when people have abundance problems, it means it's not just about money. It means that they don't see what they have to appreciate it. And if you can't see what you have, then how can you expect the money to be flowing when you can't see what you have? I appreciate health. I appreciate things working out. I've always had a lot of abundance in my life, and it wasn't really necessarily about money. And as time goes on, I didn't necessarily see it like that, but that's how, in hindsight, that's what evolved in my life that is perfect. And it's like, I have a lot of abundance in my life.
Beautiful. It's funny, we look upon the US, you know, the American dream kind of mythology, but we do look upon America. And one thing you guys definitely have is, you know, I'm not going to say capitalism is a good system. It's not really serving its purpose, but there was a great sense of confidence in American people. Europeans were much more self-doubting or something, you know. When everybody was telling me to have a great day, and they might have been faking it, but they were faking it so much I was believing them. So here now we've upped our game, but you guys definitely have an intrinsic belief that you can achieve anything in wealth, you know. So it's a good characteristic of America in that sense, isn't it? It really comes across.
You know, there always seems to be, for me, there's always, living in the US, and I can't say, you know, we've traveled the world, but for an American, there's always opportunity. If you want to create something, you don't have to know somebody. You got something good, you want to make something happen, it can happen. You don't have to know somebody. Yes, that happens sometimes, but I do love that freedom.
Jeff, I want to talk about debt. Um,
Uh-oh.
Nearly to death. So, the whole coronavirus thing, it was like all these people are dying. Maybe some of them wanted to go. Like, where are they going? They're going to a great place. It's a lot of fun where they go. What does Adamus, does he talk about death to you? What does he say about death? Removing the fear of death for humanity, I suppose. How do we remove it?
We actually have a class called Dreamwalker Death, which really explains a lot of, Adamus talks a lot about what death is, and it's actually pretty fascinating. But he's always laughing and saying, birth is the hard thing. That's what you need to fear, because you kind of just get sucked back down in here based on.
You got to come through that horrible tunnel.
Yeah, and there's kind of a overall belief that we sit up there in the other realms and talk to our guides and plan our next lifetime. And Adamus is like, not so much. You go up there into what he calls the near earth realms, and then you get sucked back down. Basically, it's your own karma sucking you back in. And he said, that's a tough one. Death, it's no problem. He says it's a very easy transition, unless you do it through things like with the suffering, a disease or a auto accident or something. But in this class, he also teaches you how to just walk out when you're ready, die with dignity. And he said it's so easy, and we've done it at least 1,000 times, different incarnations. You're kind of a pro at it now. But the human fears death because it fears that the identity will end, or it fears judgment on the other side, either judgment from God or
religions have set that up.
Yeah, even themselves. You're
going to go to hell, you're going to go to heaven or purgatory.
Yeah. So he's like, none of that happens. There's not this great big judgment and the jury trial or Satan or what. He said it just doesn't happen. He said what happens a lot of times is death. So first of all, you usually leave the body about 3 days before the physical death, even if it's like an accident. And so he said a lot of times they get to the other side, they don't even realize they're dead. The angels, or they got to come along and say, by the way, you're dead now, because it's not that big of a deal. And the Adamus talks about the biggest problem with death right now is it's not done with dignity. Mm-hmm. People go into like a state of Alzheimer's, which is just kind of, you're in the in-between zone, or we have these long-term diseases and a lot of pain in them. And he really talks a lot about just dying with dignity. When you're ready, just walk out. And you can either, take your body with you, or you can leave it back on Earth.
Does he talk much about health in that sense? I mean, I heard you say in one of your interviews that all human problems are really boiled down to 4 different things: health, wealth, relationships, our career, this kind of stuff. Does he talk a lot about, I suppose now we're all being told, to fear going outside, to fear connecting with each other, we're going to catch something. Right. But I've always been a real believer in the power of healing myself. And does he talk about any ways of really harnessing that? I suppose I'm quite interested in that, harnessing that inner gift we all have to heal ourselves. Does he touch on that?
Yeah, quite a bit in different ways. Basically saying the body has everything it needs to naturally heal itself. So he's always encouraging us not to do all these vitamins and supplements, because it's like when we do, it's like sending a message to the body that it doesn't know what to do. And he said, you let the body handle itself, it will heal. Right now, with the ones we work with, we're going through a process of integrating our some people call it light body. Adamus doesn't like that term. He calls it the free energy body into our biology. So that's having a pretty big impact, and it's a little painful, aches and pains at times, because you're integrating this whole other type of energy body into your being. But basically, from a standpoint of health, he says your body already knows what to do. Just let it do it.
Adamus scares me a little bit, just because of, I forgot what you call it, consequences. So I frequently have to give that medical disclaimer saying this is for entertainment value only, not medical advice.
Linda's worried about somebody going off their medication, and thank you for worrying. But Adamus again is like saying, ultimately you really don't need it. Your body. He's made a statement. It makes Linda cringe, but he said it's all energy out there, and you can even drink gasoline, and your body knows how to convert it into pure energy.
You have to repeat that? Did you have to say
that? But he's like, don't try this at home yet, until you're
here, Linda,
really ready. But
I'm gonna.
We know that's not. Yeah.
I'm gonna go over to people now to ask questions in a second. My final thing really
Sure.
is just before I go, the term that you guys use, a master's pause. The way Linda sets it up when you guys were in Hawaii was really beautiful, the way you do the breath. But the word Shaumbra, what does that actually mean? I just was interested in that.
It was actually funny. It was a term that Tobias used years ago at the very start. And he said so many of the people that came to Crimson Circle had been together at the time of Yeshua, Jesus, in the Middle East. And that we were all associated in one way with the works and the teachings of Yeshua, and more specifically with the Essenes, and that we would have gatherings, but we had to do it kind of secretly. So we would put a crimson-colored shawl outside, at the gate or whatever, to indicate that we were doing that. And at the time, we called ourselves Shaumbra, which is actually two Hebrew words, Shaumbra, and I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but basically meaning family of the rock or family of stability.
Actually, that was Israelis that we went to Israel, and it was Israelis that told us that that's what that meant. Yeah. We had no idea.
And we never pushed it. Linda and I never really mentioned it or anything. And then they just started calling themselves that. It was so beautiful because it's a term we haven't, we never encouraged, but people really connected with that. So now today, Shaumbra means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful word, actually. It does invoke a sense of community, a sense of spirit, definitely when I hear that word. I'm going to just ask people now, if you want to type in your questions in the chat box there, folks, and we'll have about a half hour of a Q&A with Jeff and Linda. So go ahead and type away. Okay. So we got a guy, I think it's Laszlo. There are many light language channelers offering countless energy transmissions, which are supposed to support our ascension process and also moving into a 5D light body. Adamus recommends us to stop working on ourselves and simply allow realization to happen, and also our 3D body to transform into a 5D Christo body. So he says he's a little confused with these two different teachings, but thank you for your amazing contribution. But what's your take on what he just said?
Adamus is pretty outspoken, first about dimensions. He said there aren't any. It's a figment of our hierarchical illusions that we have to have level dimension 5, 6, 7. He said there really aren't. He actually said dimensions are simply senses, an ability to sense things in a different way, and that as angelic beings, we have about 200,000 different senses. But apart from that, you don't work at realization, and I've learned that. It took me a while, but you don't work at realization. The human couldn't if it wanted to. It just gets itself into a dead end. Ultimately, realization is about allowing a very, very natural process to take place. The other day, we were doing something, doing a webcast, and one of the questions was, what's the biggest distraction in my life? And the answer was yourself. Because you get in the way, you try to plan your enlightenment from a human perspective, which you can't possibly do. So get out of your way, allow your realization, and realize that the human is the part that is involved in the experience, but now the master, the human, the I am start integrating together. We kind of use a slogan, relax into realization, and it's particularly appropriate when we're in Hawaii with the groups. It's just like, put yourself in a hammock, get yourself a drink, and allow realization. And to me, it makes so much more sense than having to have all these disciplines and opening portals and toning and all these different things you have to, it's mental, and it doesn't get you there. And, I would say the biggest message that Adamas has is allow your realization. That's it. Sorry, I get.
No.
I don't mean to jump in and.
You're not at all. Not at all. And to add to that, with the COVID, it seems like no coincidence. Adamas said there would be an expansion of realization during this time period between, when was it, like March and end of August. And he said that before the virus thing went crazy. And I kind of had to laugh, because I thought, boy, that seems like no coincidence that you've got a virus that is causing people to stop their everyday life. They're kind of stuck, sitting in place, and all the distractions of everyday life have changed a bit, and everybody's sitting in a different place right now. And it seemed like no coincidental in that whole experience. What do you think?
Here, guys, from Frank, and he's saying there was a suggestion that we didn't need to join causes. To create a more equal society, do we not need to come together? What's a better way to create equality?
And I have to remind everybody that Adamas is here to work with a relatively small group right now to have their embodied realization. That's his whole focus. Not that he doesn't care, but he's not focused on the rest of the world. So the work we're doing is very, very personal right now. Some might say it's selfish or whatever, but I'm okay with that, because you do more to change the potential of the planet by becoming that master yourself than being out there, at arms or fighting causes or whatever. It doesn't take a lot of realized masters on the planet who have been in human form to just be here illuminating their consciousness. Suddenly, all the people, hopefully the politicians and the business owners and all the rest of that will suddenly start thinking about things different, because there's more consciousness on the planet right now. And instead of very short-sighted solutions to whether things like the economy or racial injustice or anything like that, we get out of those old patterns of trying to resolve it, battling to resolve it, and suddenly things start moving again. But Adamas is so clear: don't get involved right now. It's a huge distraction in your realization. It's not that these things are bad to have causes, but for this small group of Shaumbra right now, it's time right now, particularly this summer, to allow your realization. Then you come out the other side as a true master that does more to change the planet. And especially, sorry, I'm carrying on, but I get so excited, and then Adamas is back there going, but right now we're at an epic time on the planet, not just because of the virus or that, but he calls it the time of machines. And he said when in his last lifetime back in the 1700s, he time traveled to now and realized that this is the time of machines. This is when technology is changing everything at a exponential rate right now, faster than anything has ever happened. So we're doing this whole kind of flip in the human species, in consciousness, in technology, what technology brings us in the very short-term future is phenomenal. If it is not balanced with consciousness, it could be not such a good thing. And it's no coincidence that this group of Shaumbra are here right now. We're literally at ground zero of the time of machines, this huge switchover with technology, and we bring that element of consciousness, but we do it by just allowing our own realization.
Recently Abraham Hicks, they had a quote, and they said, I think it was, one or more connected directly to source is more powerful than a million who aren't.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Off the charts, right?
Yeah.
Nice question here from Roberta. Linda, we'll go to you. Jeff and Linda, have you had glimpses or realized your own realization as yet?
It's a very, very, very personal process. Very personal. And for me, it's not something to be. I just don't have anything to say about it because it's my process.
Okay.
It's my journey.
And Linda and I have talked about this before, of course, and it's the type of thing. Again, it's a very personal thing. I don't really care to share that with other people, and there's weird expectations about it. So, our kind of stance on it is like, hey, it's a personal thing,
Okay, Roberta, thanks for that question. And I'm going to scroll.
Good question. Really good question.
Erica, who's saying, Adamus talks about not needing to study. Erica says she likes reading The Way of Mastery, the teachings of Jeshua. What is Adamus's opinion on these readings?
I'm checking with him right now. Said he hasn't read it, but hang on a second, he's going to. Okay, he just read it. A lot of good information, and he's faster than artificial intelligence. He's a lot of good information, but some of the stuff in there is laborious and is. I'm trying to figure out how he's saying this. It's just laborious, and you're past that right now. But basically, some good information.
Okay. So the questions are flying in here. Okay. So this is from Adriana, and question is about abundance. In the last, she tuned into your last show. Adamus was very clear that it is time to stop the lack of energy. She's been working with herself about it, but even working with it, she feels is a distraction. So she saw the class on abundance, but she'd like to know any more tips about the topic of abundance.
Actually, abundance is it's a loaded thing, really loaded, because we've gone so many lifetimes of struggling for abundance or thinking that somebody else is controlling it. For me, I think the best way to have that abundance is just take a long walk by yourself and just breathe and allow. It's your energy. Let it serve you. Adamus said years ago that the definition of grace is allowing energy to serve you. And our consciousness for humanity isn't quite there with that. But once you really just take a long walk and just allow the energy to serve you, that's the definition of grace and ultimately abundance.
It's one of my favorite words, actually, grace. It's a beautiful
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so Can Keskin would like to ask about the new and old Earth not coming together. Actually, it's a good question. Is that happening in this dimension potentially? What implications does it have for developing countries versus the Western world? Does that mean that the dramatic story of the Middle Eastern conflicts will persist for another couple of 100 years? When do the wars come to an end with the increasing consciousness of the planet?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
No.
Okay. Adamus says that I think he announced about 4 years ago, old Earth, new Earth are not going to come together. And there was a lot of Shaumbra that were really disappointed with that. But he said it's just not appropriate. There's too many on this planet that still want to fight and battle and stay in duality and have their causes and everything else. He said it just wouldn't work out. And at the time, I really didn't quite understand. I understand now, though. So we've got more than one new Earth. There's literally hundreds of new Earths, and they have characteristics very similar to this planet, the beauty of nature, the ability to love, and things like that. But you're not locked into physical. In other words, you can go in and out of physical reality. What ultimately happened was that these new Earths were being set up for the new ones who have never been on this earth, like our angelic brothers and sisters who have never been on this earth. There were approximately 144,000 angelic families, of which we came from, and recently they disbanded. So you have all these soul beings from 144,000 angelic families. Now the families are disbanded, and what's happened is many of them have gone to these new Earths now, kind of following in our footsteps, but not necessarily here in classic Earth, to go through their process now of understanding their own sovereignty and their own divinity. So they're kind of following in our footsteps, but it wasn't appropriate to meld New Earth and Old Earth because there was too many old issues of friction and suffering, and that it just wasn't felt that they should meld. So they haven't.
Okay. Clarissa is asking, and this is a good opportunity really to let people know, how can she join the Shaumbra group? And she sends gratitude from Switzerland. But how can she join the group? How do people go?
Can I answer that?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing to join.
Okay. You can't join.
You can't join.
I mean,
it's open. It's open. There's no membership.
There's no membership. There's no dues. A lot of people have over the years called themselves Shaumbra, but we don't give you a certificate, and there's no annual fee or anything. And I love that.
I do too.
Because once in a while we're accused of being a cult. And it's like, I know to have a cult, you have to join something, and you can't join this.
We don't fit any of those rules.
Yeah, there's no dues. You can't join. There's no rules. You're encouraged to drink wine and eat chocolate.
Yeah.
The only thing Adamas doesn't like is the SSRI medications, the antidepressants. But other than that, it's pretty easy.
Go to the website, explore. Yeah. There's lots to look at, lots and lots.
Yeah.
Tune into the monthly broadcasts. I presume you do gatherings now and again that are in Hawaii or Colorado that people can go to, but it's all on the website.
Sure.
Okay, brilliant question and brilliant answer. Okay, very quick one here. I think I already know the answer. What is Adamus's view on using cannabis to help connect within?
Oops.
Well, we were actually just talking about cannabis recently in Colorado. It's legal, and Peter, our technical manager here, was saying the other day, isn't it funny that we went from not so long ago, 3 years ago, it was illegal, and then once the coronavirus thing started up, there was things that were listed as essential services. Marijuana shops were one of them. So we went from illegal to essential in a couple of years. Adamus doesn't really care about cannabis usage. Like anything else, it can be a distraction. If you're getting high every day or using it, thinking that it's going to get you to enlightenment, but he really doesn't care if somebody has a little indulgence in it now and then.
Lottie is coming on here to say, can you or Adamus explain to people why we're not all one, but we are sovereign? So she's kind of wondering the difference between those two terms. We're all one, and then sovereign. That's it's an interesting point. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and to me, they're opposite ends of the scale. For instance, and we actually were doing a workshop. We were guests at a workshop in Switzerland a number of years ago, and the sponsor wanted Adamus to talk about oneness, and I said no, you really don't want him talking about that, and she insisted. So I got up there and. Basically, we got kicked out of the conference because Adamus said there is no oneness, and that would be a bad joke on the part of spirit that, we all have to come back into this homogenous Borg. We've gone out.
The Borg?
From Star Wars.
Where everybody's all one?
Yeah. And he said, no, you become a sovereign being. You are your own one. You are totally independent, sovereign, and you're within your own energy, your own being. You're not beholden to anything or anyone, but that gives me a greater appreciation for another sovereign being. But we don't have to be one, we don't have to, geez, wouldn't that be, could you imagine, that we mingled our energy and we were one forever, and then we got Peter into that and you into that, and now we're all just this one, and it's like we forget who we were. Then you become sovereign, and then therefore I can see it's the true namaste. I can really then understand the God in you because I've become sovereign within me.
Are we being too silly?
No, I like a bit of silly. Absolutely.
No. Okay. And we're not recording this. I mean, this is
Here's one. The world's teenagers are very stressed. They're suffering great anxiety.
Yes.
How does Adamus suggest that this lady can best parent her stressed, anxious teenager? Please help.
I have no idea.
No idea. Actually, Adamus doesn't talk a lot about children or other things like that. Because he's so focused and working with us in our embodied realization. But what he's kind of hinting at me right now is for the parent to do the same thing with their teenager. You're not going to find the answers out there. Once you look within and you realize it's all your energy, it's here to serve you, there's absolutely nothing to fear. There's nothing to get anxious about. The world is crazy right now. I mean, it has been for a long time, but it's really crazy right now. And, it's easy for a teenager to have anxiety, and particularly with all the technical things available to them, but also can be detrimental at times. But for the parent to really help them to understand that everything they need is right there within, everything.
The lady who asked that question is also saying he's quite strong on the SSRIs. What does he suggest one does to stop taking them?
Wow.
That's a tough one because there is really not a great solution other than gradual reduction. Don't drop it all at once if you've been on them for a long time. If you haven't been on them, please don't get on them, because they have a way of going in and altering the reality landscape in your mind, and it's very, very deceptive. If you're interested in embodied realization, it will absolutely flatline any feelings of sensuality or the natural ups and downs of coming to realization. But unfortunately, he's the only real way is gradual reduction. If you're taking, I don't know, 10 milliliters a day, go to 9, and then slowly withdraw off of them. They are extremely powerful drugs that play a lot of games in the mind.
People become extremely dependent on them. I mean, that's why the drug companies like them so much.
Yeah.
I remember myself a few years ago, I had a dark period, like dark night of the soul kind of thing. And a doctor said to me, you're going to have to go on these tablets. And I said, no, I'm going to go cold turkey on this. And he said, you're very brave. And I said, no, I'm actually really scared of those tablets. They were scaring me more because I knew that they would just block what I needed to feel. And then I'd be in a worse pickle, But I think, I think I hope that helps you, Kat, that answer to your question.
And by the way, he also said that a couple of things like licorice can help reduce some of the anxiety that's associated with it, but it doesn't totally. It's a little bit helpful, and not the licorice that you buy at the convenience store. It's all kind of that red stuff. Get natural licorice.
Get natural licorice and get into nature as much as you can with your family.
Absolutely.
And Adamus is always big on nature. In fact, I can't believe that thank you for bringing that up. That's his whole thing all the time. He always invites people to spend time in nature, that it's one of the most valuable things you can do for yourself.
Beautiful. Okay, so what is Saint-Germain's take on the Quran and the Levi Mahfuz update by Barack Obama? Okay. Do you know what that person is talking about?
No. And again, we get asked questions a lot of times, Adamus's opinion on this or that. He generally doesn't really say much about it, for a lot of reasons. But first of all, he hasn't necessarily read all this stuff, or doesn't choose to either. And a lot of it is just going back to, how do you feel about it? He's not going to endorse something in particular. Okay. But he is telling me that he was a rabbi in one of his way past lifetimes, and he really liked the Quran. Okay.
That's it. I have one here. This lady, I think, is asking about animals. Do they reincarnate? And she wants to know when she goes to a new Earth at some point, will she see her favorite dog? People love animals. It's a great relationship with animals that we have. And does Adamus talk about them a lot?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember Adamas's exact opinion on that, but I know that there's a reincarnation of a dog that we love very much that we lost about 15 years ago that showed up in Hawaii. And it's a very high conscious reincarnation of a dog named Fred, and this dog's name is Belle.
Wow.
So sorry.
Yeah, and pets do tend to incarnate, and they come back to you, and not always of the same breed or whatever, but they also kind of hang out waiting for you to cross over or to play with them in your dream state. They don't get all caught up in time and things like that we do, so they're very patient, just waiting. Adamus has said one of the first things that you do that greets you when you come over to the other side is your pets.
Oh, that's right.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, pets definitely can incarnate.
He actually did a special channel related to dream walk and pets.
Yeah.
So that, and actually it's a very popular thing that we have, where people are losing an animal and they're looking for support in that, because sometimes animals are better friends than humans.
They can be. Yeah. It's do you have a dog now? Do you have a pet now, both of you?
Yeah, Belle in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
It's the weirdest thing. It's not our dog. It belongs to the neighbors, who are really, really nice. But the minute we get there, she comes over and stays with us. She was with us for 4.5 months, day and night. I mean, not just coming over once or twice, but she plants herself there. So we have a dog once we get there, and the neighbors are great about it. And once we leave, then Belle goes back over there. It's the perfect setup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my sound guy here is asking me, where does Adamus hang out? Where does he live? What's his realm like? Who's he hanging out with?
He talks a lot about the Ascended Masters Club, and Adamus gets a little bit arrogant at times, intentionally. That's one of his shticks. But he says he hangs out at the Ascended Masters Club. He says he's the president of the Ascended Masters Club as well, self-appointed, of course.
Tell him I said I thought he'd let go of ego at this point.
Yeah. They hang around and kind of watch in on us, and it sounds like a great place.
He reports our progress to the members of the club.
Yeah, and he's very proud of what we're doing. But then he chastises us sometimes, like, "Don't embarrass me now when I go back to the Ascended Masters Club." But
it's a shtick for him.
It's a shtick, yeah. I asked him recently, is there really such a place? I mean, is this just kind of one of your, theatrical things? He said, no, actually, there really is. He said, but I don't spend all my time there. An Ascended Master truly is in their own sovereignty. They don't need a place. There is really no time or space. And it's hard for a human to imagine, but they're totally comfortable in their own beingness. They don't need a hobby or a job or something to do, and the human can barely fathom that. The Ascended Master is just in a state of being. And I do want to point out also that Adamus has said numerous times that about almost 70% of the Ascended Masters were women in their last lifetime. So it's not just a bunch of old guys hanging around smoking cigars. Most of them were women.
I just a quick one here about okay, so someone is asking about the crystal that Adamus got stuck in, and the very next person, please don't ask that crystal question.
No, please don't ask.
You don't want to go there, or do you want to touch on it?
Oh, it's kind of a funny thing. So Adamus years ago told this story of how he was a little slave boy in Atlantis and the temples of Tien, which were kind of off of what now is Cuba, and that he was like serving all of us, the Shaumbra, and we were working on becoming multidimensional. And he happened to walk into the chamber at the wrong time, and he got zapped by energy, and then it propelled him into this kind of a crystal prison for over 100,000 years. And he'll tell his story, and he said, you think you got it bad? Look at me. But it's actually a really good story, because it's his way of saying it's so easy to get trapped in our own prisons, no matter what they are. True. And his thing is, after 100,000 years, and I don't know if it was really that long, but it sounds good. After 100,000 years, he tried everything: praying, begging, fighting, pleading. Nothing could get him out until one day he had tried everything and he finally realized, hey, I got myself into this. I can get myself out. And the point was he'd been blaming everybody else all this time. And being a victim, why did this happen to me? And those terrible people who put me in here have to get me out. And he finally realized, I have to take responsibility for my own energy. I got myself in here. And he said at that moment, he took a step and he walked right out, never looked back. He's a great storyteller.
He's a great storyteller.
And it's a beautiful story, but he's told it so many times, and Shaumbra is now like, oh God, do we have to hear this again?
Okay, so we have Laszlo here who is asking how to deal. I suppose if you have any nighttime visitors or earthbound spirits that you don't really want to be visiting you, how would you deal with that? I suppose it's the whole question of, it's kind of an interesting one. Do we need to protect ourselves or do we not? In the sense that if we give our energy into protection, are we inviting something we don't want? What's Adamus' view on protection?
Actually, Linda would be a good one to answer that. Nighttime visitors, how do you get rid of them?
Oh,
the spooks and the boogeymen and the zetas, and
it's kind of like the Adamas stuck in a crystal. I had a lot of problems with that for a long time, many years, and then it was quite spooky for me, scary. And then I talked to Jeff, and he's like, "Don't you realize you just told him to go away?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Tell him to go away." So I did, and they never come back.
Wow.
She never had thought that you could just say, "Get the hell out of here! I command you to leave." And these beings, and particularly,
I was tortured.
She was having a lot of problems with the zetas, and these beings. Their food is your fear. So they're attracted to it, and they love to get you fearful. They cannot do anything to you physically or mentally, but they can get you into fear. And Linda was so surprised when I just said, tell them to leave, command them to leave, and they have to. And she did. And
I was shocked, like, yeah, right, but it worked.
I made her sit up in bed, and I said, I turned on the light, and I said, now, stand up on the mattress here in bed and tell them to get out of here. And she did.
I actually listened to him.
Yeah, that was about the only time. And they left. But I think about 10 years later, a few of them came back. But now you knew what to do. Is say, get out. And they operate on fear, and they go after humans and little kids and all the rest of that.
Well, my joke was that I was afraid of the dark not because the dark is empty, but because the dark is so full.
I think we're coming close to finishing, guys. So I've got a nice question here, probably to kind of start rounding up on.
By the way, I want to just add to that last one. That's the sign of a real master. When a real master says, I command you to leave. And you don't look back. You don't doubt what you say. I command you to leave. And then they have to. They'll go find somebody else. But they realize that's a master. I'm not going to be able to fool with them. Sorry.
He's got that big John Wayne voice to do that. I'm going
to... He does, doesn't he?
Put her in the bedroom, yeah.
I command you to leave.
So does Adamus have any advice on people here who are watching on how they can channel themselves?
I don't quite know what that means, other than be yourself, other than...
Oh, no, what I meant was how to channel their own kind of higher aspect. Like,
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But, I would say just, depending what you call channeling, is just, you're just opening up to your higher self, to the master, to the wisdom within. And
it's pure allowing.
It's pure allowing. Thank you. And if you want to do the kind of channeling I do, and Linda does, by the way, I channel verbally, and also Adamus has me using my body. Linda is channeling the energy to help keep everything smooth and flowing. And if I get lost out there, she's kind of my anchor point to help me get back in. But if somebody wants to do this type of channeling, it's really a matter of I don't really go into a trance anymore. I'm in an altered state, but not a trance. And if somebody wants to channel, the hardest thing is getting those first 5 words out. And then once it starts flowing, it's much easier. So
if they're trying to do it verbally.
if they're, yeah, I'm talking literally channeling. If you just want to connect more into your true self, your free self, it's just a matter of allowing and choosing. The human saying, "Hey, I'm open into all the wisdom of the master and to the consciousness of the I am. Let's get together and let's just do this."
And I want to leave on a note of real empowerment. So I get the sense that, I think I heard you say this before, that, so we've been here before, we've been around this block before in Lemuria, in Atlantis, and here we are again at a very important point in our growth. This is done, isn't it? We've done this. It's okay. We're on, like, people right now are all feeling a bit insecure. Is the human race going to get through this? But I think Adamus has said, it's done. We're here. Is that the feeling I get? We're going to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll still be people that choose to, suffer and battle and not have self-worth. And, it's up to us as compassionate masters to allow that. But the ones who say, I'm done with all these succession of lifetimes and lessons and hardships, I'm done with it, then it starts a whole new path for you. It opens everything up, but you got to be ready for change. Because Linda and I found that in our own life. Once we open to that, things will change, and not good or bad. They just change, and you got to be ready for that. Our lives changed dramatically, and wonderfully, but dramatically. So Adamus says there's
we could have never imagined could you ever imagine what our life is?
No. Adamus says that we're not going to have like a apocalyptic ending like as in Atlantis, but it's a huge evolutionary, a quantum jump that we're going through right now, and some are going to have a really tough time with it.
When you mentioned the technology in the cyborgs and that kind of thing, you mean that in an empowering way, do you, for humanity? Because it sounds a little bit. You said it earlier, like the chips in China and stuff. But you mean it in a more empowering way, do you? In a sense, once we upgrade the human first, is that the feeling?
Without the element of consciousness, it could go the other way. It could be used for enslavement of humans or the entire human race. Adamus doesn't see it going that way, but that's why he's so keen about us bringing in that consciousness right now, so that it's used to really go through. We're in an evolution of the human species, and to evolve it in the highest consciousness way. This biology is due for an overhaul, an update. It's been around for millions of years, and it follows a very, very slow path of evolution. And right now, technology offers a lot of potentials for a kind of a new biotechno-human on the planet. But again, I think as we all can feel into it, it's a little scary if there's not consciousness.
And I suppose this is a nice one to finish. How do you know when you're realized? How do you know?
That's a really good question. It is different with every person, and some are going to be realized, but doubt still go, this couldn't be realized. We had a very dear friend recently cross over, and he said that was his last 2 weeks. He was realized, but he was doubting his realization. For others, you just wake up in the morning with a great big smile on your face, and that smile never goes away. For others, it's I would say the biggest attribute is a feeling of freedom, and you're no longer tilting at windmills. There's no longer the battles within. You've come into a point of full acceptance and with yourself. You're not trying to change the world or anything like that. You've just come to terms with yourself, and there's no longer any internal strife.
That's really, I heard you in another interview as well. He doesn't like the word dimension.
Right.
Another dimension. Lots of people talking about 5D consciousness. I just even feel I'm walking around the streets here now, and I'll see somebody with a mask on, and they look a bit scared, and they're kind of running by, and I'm just there going to get my sandwich and sitting in the park. And I almost feel like we're living in two different worlds, even though we're both on the same street. Do you feel that now? It's like when people talk about the world splitting into two earths, it's splitting into two different frequencies, many different frequencies.
Many.
You can really see it at the moment because
Mhm.
some people are just not bothered by the virus. They don't really buy into it. Others are really, really scared and with the gloves and the mask. So that's two different frequencies on the planet right now. Very, very different. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, and there's many different frequencies on the planet, but what's amazing right now is watching as humans, a lot of humans, are starting to come to their realization right now, and the effect that that's going to have on the planet is greater than any protest marches or petitions or any of that. And not that any of that is bad, but just imagine thousands of realized masters on the planet who aren't trying to push any agenda. They're just shining their light, and that's what does it. That's what's going to bring us into this next era for humanity.
I think that's a really important.
Adamus says there's a new wave coming, that there's been a lot of Shaumbra that have been with us for quite a while. He says there's a new wave, a younger wave coming. I think you might be a representative of that wave.
Yeah.
I'm the younger wave.
Yes.
Yeah. See, younger wave.
You got me.
This is the second wave because you never get younger. Thank you for that, Linda. I'll take that. I'll take
No, seriously.
that forward. So in summation, I just want to say it's been great having you guys here. We could really talk to you all night. The questions are still coming in. There's people still coming in, which is kind of hilarious. But just to say, is there anything, if people want to get in touch with you guys, just really, as you said earlier, go to the website. That's the main thing to do.
Yep.
Do you want to leave a little message for people as you leave, or anything to say in summation? Linda, Jeff?
You.
Actually, just really, really easy, simple. First of all, you can go to our website, crimsoncircle.com. I'd say 70-80% of everything we have is free. There's other things you can buy if you want, but you're not required to, or even pushed into it. But my statement for a departure here is just relax into realization. It's really actually pretty easy, and that's the hard part. We expect it to be difficult and that we have to work at it, that the human has to earn it, and you don't. None of those things. You don't have to work at it. Just relax into it. But it doesn't mean it's all going to happen in that instant. It unfolds. It's a beautiful experience, and allow yourself to enjoy that experience into realization. It's not a rush. You're not trying to get there quickly. Relax into it and enjoy the experience. It's the only time in the history of your whole soul that you'll ever go into enlightenment. So enjoy it.
Beautiful. Roberta says here, I can't thank you enough for the work you are doing. You are truly illuminating our potentials. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in information, I'd like to invite you, if you will, just to, I want to thank everybody for coming along here tonight. We've had a great time talking to these two beautiful people, and you are doing amazing work. And I want to thank Adamus for looking after us here on Earth and helping us evolve. It's a beautiful role that he has in our lives. And just to say, as we finish, I'm going to invite everybody before we leave. We're just going to do a short meditation again, just to finish off. So I'll invite you all again to drop into your heart center. And tune into that sense that Jeff finished on about really relaxing into your own realization. And as you do that, just see your heart light up. See your sense of inner knowing light up. Just let go of all effort. Just drop into that space. And just as you're in that space now, I just want to send all of us together to send appreciation to each other and send appreciation to all the ascended masters that work with this planet. Send our love, send our appreciation. from our hearts to each other and to the Ascended Masters. As you open your eyes now again, and let that bring a smile to your face. Feel yourself nice and grounded back in your feet, back in your body. Thanks again, Linda. Thanks again, Jeff. Thanks again, everybody there. We will do more events like this on Zoom in the coming weeks, and we plan to talk to some more amazing people. So tune in anytime. If you want to know more about the events, just go to positivelife.ie, and you've heard Jeff and Linda's website as well. So from Ireland, we send you some Irish love, and we thank you so much. And you're welcome to come here anytime. We'll link up again and do something together. We'd love to host you if you plan to come to Ireland.
Oh, we'd love to do that. Yeah.
Namaste.
Good. Thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Take care, folks. Bye-bye. Everybody's waving in there. Beautiful. See you guys. Over and out.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.